This isn't just about AI writing full songs on its own. That's only part of the story. What's way more interesting, how AI is sneaking into every stage of music production, from songwriting to mixing to mastering, and even live jamming. That's what we're covering today. Next.
This is your Deep Dive of the Week with your host, Chris Mesnarek.
Think of it like this. AI is becoming less like an overbearing robot composer and more like a hyper-intelligent assistant, workflow sidekick, or even a collaborator that's in the driver's seat. So if you're a musician, a producer, or even if you're just a curious creative who's finicky and tinkered with plugins, you're going to want to stick around. This is where the magic and the tension really happens. So let's start at the beginning, the songwriting phase. So when you think AI and music, you might imagine a robot cranking out full pop hits, and it can do that. And apps like Aiva, AIVA, and Amper do exactly that. They generate melodies, chord progressions, and even entire arrangements based on your prompts. Obviously, Suno and Udio do the same as well, full prompts and full songs. But the twist is most pros don't just hand the keys to an AI and say, go write my next banger. Instead, they use AI more like creative Muse or a brainstorming partner at various portions. So if you're stuck on a chorus, AI might suggest a chord progression you hadn't thought of. If you're looking for a different mood, maybe dark or brooding or bright and bouncy, and AI can throw you some ideas to riff off of. So it's like a co-writer who never runs out of ideas, never complains, and is not going to steal your spotlight. So now some musicians, and we've mentioned before, like Taryn Southern, have already embraced this fully. AI-generated parts seamlessly into their songs, but others are using it sparingly just to shake out some loose creative blocks. Some people are aren't talking about it because some people don't love it. So these guys are coming out and saying they're doing it. So you're going to start having all types of different versions. So the bottom line is AI is becoming a creative accelerator, not necessarily replacement, but that's going to be debatable. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Next up is the mixing phase. So once you've recorded, this is where AI really is going to shine as a workflow game changer. So let's be honest, mixing can be a grind. I know personally I've mixed and remixed, and you lose yourself in it for years sometimes with certain songs. Tweaking EQs, compressing, boosting, trying to get all the elements sitting right. And at the end of the day, you were just a musician trying to get your sound across. Now you're a whole bunch of different things. So, now enter AI-powered plugins like Isotope Neutron and Sonable Smart EQ. And these guys are going to analyze your tracks and offer intelligent suggestions, maybe telling you the vocals need a little bit more brightness or the bass could use a bit more punch. So you can think about them like sound engineering superhuman ears, catching things you might miss, trained on data from all sorts of music. So these tools don't just speed up the process, they're going to lower the barrier to entry for mixing. Bedroom producers with limited mixing chops suddenly have a professional assistant at no cost in their toolkit. But it's not about hopefully handing over control creatively, and the human mixer is still going to call the shots ideally. AI is just going to provide smart second opinions, at least in these current plugins. The next step that's interesting in the mixing process and as well as the mastering process is going to be the stem isolation and remixing. So the stems are the actual parts that you output and are able to be mixed. Sometimes it can be all as individual as each element, and sometimes it can be, the bass drum and the kick drum and the bass together and highs together and other such things. So, if you ever wanted to isolate the vocals or the drums from a song remix or to practice with it, you're going to have to hunt down stems, which can be, sometimes basically impossible for some of your favorite songs. And even if you have the money, it can be expensive, and if you're doing a cover professionally. But AI is going to change the stem isolation game. So Muse Live, which just dropped a huge update, letting you separate vocals, drums, bass, and more in real time offline. So right on your laptop. So that's an interesting development in the LLMs. It's a kind of near to the small language models, SLMs, which hopefully will one day be on device on your computer, on your phone, and that's going to fix a lot of the privacy concerns, or if you're doing work within your company or private information you don't necessarily want to feed into ChatGPT and have them have it, you're going to have it at home. So it's the same now, starting with this STEM process. It can happen offline, and as well with live performances. It can remix artists, producers, so they become songs become malleable now. It's not just a brick that you can't do much with. It's something you can take apart and mess with, play with, create with, practice with, and other things that you can think of. So towards the end of the mixing and mastering process, we're going to have the mastering engineer, which is the final polish on the track. And so traditionally, mastering was and is a specialized art form. It's kind of a little bit of a Zen area. It's done by engineers with years of experience, a great ear, and very expensive gear frequently. So new services that are AI powered, like Lander, LANDR, and Cloud Bounce, have kind of flipped that model on its head. So you're going to upload your mix there, and their algorithm is going to analyze it based on a huge data set of music that's come before it. It's going to apply EQ, compression, limiting, loudness adjustments, all automatically. And so that's not just a plugin, it's all automatically. And the results are going to be obviously faster, cheaper mastering that can sound surprisingly good, especially for indie artists or those on a budget. And I know for a lot of people, mastering is often an expensive and somewhat people feel unnecessary step, because it's sometimes can be tough to hear the difference. And for a lot of people, it's going to come down to a lot of what the mastering people do is getting the levels right, touching up final things. But again, it's like a Zen art form, some people would say. It's sort of a very clean, final, pristine touch on the end that sometimes people that are on a budget are going to think that's not worth it. So now with these tools, it's going to be worth it. It might not be the top, but at least it's closer. And I still think you're going to have that Zen room of mastering engineers that are going to go on. Some purists are going to swear by the human mastering for that emotional nuance and the room acoustics, but it's AI mastering is gaining traction, and I think both will exist in different segments of the market and levels of creators, fame, and all that. Another interesting one, to kind of wrap up the things that you can do with new AI tools within the process, is actually going to be live improv and collaboration. So it's not just going to be for solo work. So there's a couple platforms. One is Endless, another is called Splash, that are actually turning AI into live jam session partners. So musicians across the globe can improvise with AI generated beats, loops, and effects in real time. So it's basically, imagine having a musical conversation between a human and a machine. You're bouncing ideas back and forth, and the distance suddenly doesn't matter. You're jamming. And this is going to open up a whole bunch of new worlds for creativity, but it's also going to raise questions. Who owns that jam? Is it AI? Is it an AI company? Does he get writing credits? How does that split in copyright? Is it just for practice? Or what if a song comes out of it? So these are all very interesting questions that are being raised, and I think we might have a long time before we can answer them fully. There's going to be some interesting cases, I'm sure, down the line. So big picture, what does this all mean for creators? So on the plus side, AI tools are going to make music production much faster, more accessible, unlock new creative paths. They're going to lower the barrier for artists without any formal training, expensive gear. It's kind of like giving everybody a VIP pass to the studio. So that is a cool, fun thing for people that haven't had that in their hands. But on the flip side, if everyone's leaning into the same AI plugins or presets, we're going to risk creating a sea of sameness. A lot of people would probably argue we kind of hit that years ago with some of the plugins and other things that we were hearing over and over, and even some of the current sounds. You see that anyway. So I think this is going to be a specific trend sound. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. And then there's the jobs question. What happens to the mixing engineers, mastering pros, and session musicians if AI automation takes over parts of their role? So there's no simple answer, obviously, but the best approach is probably going to be to think about AI as a collaborator, at least in this moment, and even maybe as a competitor. It depends. You have to understand what you're up against. You can either work with it. If you hate it, you don't have to work with it, but it does exist and you should understand it, because you're up against it now. So there's, the most compelling music is still going to come from artists who are going to master this new dance between human intuition and machine intelligence, because that's the way it's always been, and new ideas come from these problems. So what about you? Have you dipped your toes into the AI-assisted songwriting? Maybe mixing some plugins, maybe some mastering. Maybe if you tried isolating some stems for a remix, has anybody jammed with an AI? That's the one I'm really interested in hearing about. I want to hear your stories, your wins, the losses, what you're worried about, what you're interested by. Please drop me a comment, hit me up on the socials. Let's get the conversation going, because at the end of the day, AI isn't here to steal your creativity, and even if it is, it can't do it. It's here to spark new kinds, if you look at it that way, new kinds of music made by humans and maybe machines together. And that's the future we're building. That's the one we're given. And I think it's a wild, exciting ride. I hope you do. I hope we all make it through. And until next time, thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to We Are the Machine, brought to you by the Riff Fitters.
You are listening to Send It On Back, an original song by That Great State, as covered by
The Machines.
Send it